So thank you for being here tonight. We're going to record this and send it on to a list of folks who weren't able to make it, but we've got about a dozen people here, so that's wonderful. Marla, I'm going to pass it over to you to share what you've prepared for the group.
Great. Yeah, so this is kind of a trip report and maybe a little bit of information too, not just on the progress that our partners have made, but some of the stuff that we evaluate and try to support our partners in doing when we're there. And in this presentation, we're trying something new. There's a lot of little video clips. So we hope it gives you a better sense of what it's like for us when we're there. You know, normally I just have like a still photo and I'll say, you know, this is Maria and here's what she told us. So instead, you're just going to hear directly from people. And I hope that makes it feel a little bit closer. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, wait, I got to share my screen. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes. Yep.
Great. All right, here we go. All right, so yeah, the Kenya project update. Yeah, we went the last week of January, so we spent 4 days visiting our two. Oops, sorry. Yeah, I'm out of order with what I was going to say. So, you know, you hear us, we're going to be talking about household water supply. Both of the partners that we're working with in Kenya and all the partners that we're working with around the world are involved in household water supply and household toilets. So I thought maybe we can have a little graphic of what household water supply means. In these projects in Kenya, they're both utilizing solar power. So there are solar panels that are using energy from the sun, converting that to electricity, and then pumping groundwater, either from a drilled well or from a groundwater spring, and pumping that water up to an elevated tank. And then that water is piped directly to households. And the water supply is metered. And you see that dotted line there that sort of represents the boundary. So oftentimes in water supply systems, property owners are responsible for whatever maintenance needs to happen to a water system beyond the water meter. So that's true with these projects also. And the water utility is responsible for what happens on the supply side of the water meter. So that's true in Seattle. It's probably true with most utilities. And we also talk about flush toilets or water seal toilets. So this is what we're talking about. You know, you just see the part that's above ground. So this shows you what's going on below the ground. And the really important part of these toilets is that U-bend and the little bit of water that is contained in that U-bend that prevents flies from going down into the pit where the waste is and then coming back up with pathogens and then landing on your food and contaminating the human environment. So, you know, we think that simple water seal is a super important part of the public health piece of these projects. So all the projects that we are supporting with our two partners involve both of these things. They will have a household water supply. So that means they can turn a tap 24/7. They're going to get water at their homes. They can use for drinking, cooking, bathing, hand washing, laundry, you know, domestic purposes. And that also allows them to have enough water to flush these toilets and maintain that water seal. So we're working with two different partners in two different counties in Kenya. One partner is named Kabda, and they work in the county called Kakamega. So Kenya is divided up into, I think it's 47 counties, somewhere around that number. Those are like states. So they're Kabda, one of our partners, is in Kakamega County. Quaho is the other partner, and they work in a county called Kisumu. They both they're both in Western Kenya. They're not too far from each other, and that's allowed them to collaborate. They've been able to visit each other's projects, which has been another benefit of working with two partners in the same country, which is something we haven't done before. So the first project that I'll present, and this is actually in the reverse order that we visited them, but so one of the projects that we have going with our partner in Kakamega County, our partner named Kabda, is the Imukuye project. So this is just a photo showing their water source before an unprotected spring, and this is what it looked like when we just visited a couple weeks ago. So you can see the improvements that they've made to protect the water and actually create a situation where communities are getting only groundwater and not water that has come to the surface. And now I'm gonna, Edwin, who is the engineer who works on staff with our local partner Kabda, will explain a little bit more about how the system works.
This is now where the suction chamber is, where we are now collecting the water, and then it goes through the delivery pipe. That delivery pipe is taking water to the sump. That sump is 25,000 liters capacity sump, this one. So we have only taken half the capacity of this spring. This one, we have a pump here that is pumping 12,000 liters per hour water from here to the elevated tank at Muyundi Secondary. From there now, it is now supplied to the community members.
Then
this is now where the suction chamber is. Where
this is the tank that he spoke of. So we talked about water being piped to a water storage tank, and here it is. And you can see from that video that I just stayed on the ground and I let Steve, our engineer, climb to the top and actually go inspect the tank. And he's looking for things like, is everything sealed off? Because we have this water that's clean at a protected spring. It's being piped up to a storage tank. We want to make sure that tank is completely sealed, so that the vent pipes have screens on them so no insects or animals get in. Everything is sealed off. That water continues to be protected. So community members in Imukuye are now in the process of excavating trenches to lay the distribution pipe. So they're still like, this trench isn't quite deep enough. They're going to dig them 3 feet deep and about 1 foot wide. That depth is chosen to protect the pipe. You know, the deeper the better. And then some households are already connected to this system. So we're gonna, the community will be connecting more and more households over the next few months. And I mean, they're hoping to have the system fully operating, I think by the end of June. Is that right, Kirk?
Yeah, it'll be fully operating by June, and they'll actually also have some of phase 2 connected too by then.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do on these monitoring visits is kind of look for how money is handled, how transparently it's accounted for. So in this project, every single household has to pay a water connection fee, and the rules that they established for the system were that people need to pay about 4,000 Kenyan shillings, which is what, $30, about $30, to connect to the system. Of that 4,000, they can make payments on that 4,000 Kenyan shillings over time to receive the connection, actual, the meter and the pipe to their house. They had to pay at least 1,500 shillings. So we were going around asking at households where we could see a meter and a tap stand. We wanted to see if they had made a payment, and everything, we had 100% compliance. Everybody was able to find a receipt. Our partner Kabda was able to show us in their books where that money had been accounted for. So so I was at a house and I asked the homeowner, Richard, can I see your receipt? So I just filmed for you him going to look for it.
Oh, you've made 2 payments.
And yeah, people were way more organized than me. If I had to go find a receipt, I think if somebody showed up at my house randomly and asked for a receipt, that might be a problem. Another interesting thing that we saw in Imekuye, which was unique, not the same in our other project with Kwaho, is that this partner has had a lot of experience working with very poor and vulnerable households. In their other work, they work with HIV/AIDS orphans and other kinds of vulnerable populations. So they have a lot of experience helping households to have more income, to find ways to have more of a cash income. So they do what's called a seed bank, where people can actually borrow seeds for vegetables and plant the seeds, raise vegetables. They can eat those vegetables and improve their own nutritional status, but they can also sell them in order to raise money. So the idea is that these households would be able to sell these vegetables to be able to pay their water bill. A really frequent question that we are asked is, how do people pay? Can they afford this water bill? So Kabda, our partner organization, is getting ahead of that by creating some of these income generating activities for households. So here's one person who had borrowed some seeds and planted them, and I asked them, I just asked him what he was going to use them for, and you can hear him respond.
Because it will help me on the side of paying the water bills, and even if I have some damages on the pipes, I think it will be better when I get money from the vegetables, then I do the repair of the pipe and paying of the bills.
And what's the name of this vegetable?
Emero. I don't know in English.
I don't either.
Another tool that they're using is what's called a savings group. And it's a group of people in the community that they meet weekly, and there are rules of the group that they, how much savings they're to contribute. They can also borrow from their pooled savings and there are different things that they can borrow money for. There's different interest rates, either no interest rate if you have an emergency situation that you're borrowing for, or if you're trying to start a new business or buying seeds or something, then you'd be charged an interest rate. So they wanted to establish a savings group like this in order to help people in emergencies, because we don't want somebody to be cut off from the water system because they have some kind of emergency, and what if somebody loses a job, or they've had a medical issue, and so they're just sort of low on cash. This gives the community a way to pay that water bill and not be cut off by the community water system because they had no cash. So this little video is the facilitator of the savings group describing how they work.
tumaini sina, ila damu yake Bwana, sina wema wa kutosha, dhambi zangu kuziosha, kwake Yesu nasimama.
When you open inside,
I'm sorry, nitashika pesa yao lakini sifai.
yeah, she's sorry she's going to touch their money, but it's not supposed to be that way.
Pesa inaingia hapa ndani.
Money is kept inside that box.
Kitabu tuko nayo.
They have a book there.
Tuko na constitution ya kuguide kila kitu.
They have a constitution that is guiding everything.
Constitution yetu imebeba jina ya kikundi.
The constitution is having the name of the group. Address.
Siku yenye group iliformiwa.
Yeah, when the group was formed.
Na objective.
And also the objective of the group.
Na tukapata membership criteria.
They also the constitution also has the membership
criteria. Age limit ni
18
and above.
Age limit is just 18 and above.
Gender ni all male and female.
Gender is all male and female.
Residents tunapatikana hapa ni Muyundi sublocation.
The members must just come from this village, this sublocation, this place that they reside from.
Hapa inaniambia other criteria tunasema even physically challenged disabilities.
Yeah, people with
pia tunawakaribisha.
They are also invited.
Composition of management.
Yeah.
Evalina Atieno.
Ngapi?
Diana Uma.
Okay, so that's the first project. So this is the second project with our partner Quaho in the community. We're calling it the Cocalo project. The last one I showed you the before situation. So here is the current water supply situation for the people who live in this area. I don't know. But that last video clip, that was from June of 2023. So that water, the situation in Cocalo is changing. Our partner successfully drilled a well so that they will have a groundwater source, which is obviously so much cleaner than the river source that many people are using now. This is also a solar paneled or a solar energy system. So using solar energy to power a pump. And that little video clip showed the water meter running. So the water was actually pumping when I was videoing that with that water meter, and you can't even hear it. Solar energy is amazing. The pumps are just so quiet. Other systems we've had that are pumped, if they're not connected to an electrical network, then they have to use diesel power, and it's so noisy. So it's pretty fun to have it be just silent. So this community has made a lot of progress on constructing toilets. So those water seal toilets I was talking about, 107 of them were constructed by the time of our visit at the end of January. And when they're done, which is also sometime in June, there will be toilets at all 148 homes.
Wow.
And these are going to be really well constructed toilets. So it was pretty common in this community to see these collapsed toilets. So our toilets have concrete rings that are lining the underground pit. As you saw that, there's the superstructure, of the toilet, and the human waste goes into a pit that was sort of offset from that toilet. Well, lining that pit are concrete rings, and that's because this soil gets really wet at certain times of the year and it just collapses. So a previous project had come through here, encouraged people to build toilets. Many households built those toilets, but they were, built without lining the pit. So after a year or less, they collapsed when the ground just got saturated. So you see, this household happened to have invested a lot in the superstructure. They had a pretty substantial superstructure over their pit, but other pits collapse even with a very simple light superstructure. The pit just can't withstand the soggy soils. And that's one of Kathy's, Kathy, our New Zealand friend, that's one of her sisters there. When we asked her, it's funny, we got to her house and I just asked, like, how do you like your toilet? And she just started dancing. So it's, I think we know what that means. That is no translation needed. She's pretty happy with her new toilet. So the storage tank that is also completed in this project, and there you can see it looks really similar to the storage tank in the other community. And then I wanted to include a clip because Steve, it was really great for us to go during the construction process, especially when we could see the pipe trenches before the pipe is buried. So this is a clip of Steve, our engineer, describing, some of the construction feedback that he gives them during our visits. And the goal of this feedback is that we want these systems to last as long as possible. So we make a lot of design decisions that support communities in being able to operate and maintain these systems in the long term. Like just the idea that we are going to pay to drill a well to find really clean water, because it's a lot easier to start with clean water and keep it clean than it is to pay for ongoing treatment. So that's one of the investments that as Water First we're willing to make to save on long-term operation and maintenance costs. Solar energy is another one. Solar energy is basically free. I mean, eventually they'll have to do some replacement for those panels, but they won't have to pay daily to flip on and off a pump. So Steve's going to describe some other things that we're helping the community to do to maintain, to make sure that these systems are as long lasting as possible.
This is Kakelo, and they're under construction, and we're looking at the distribution system practices. Building a piped water system is not easy. In fact, it's incredibly hard, and there's lots of issues around the quality, and that's what we're trying to address with our partners now. So I'm standing over a road crossing, and they're using HDPE pipe, that's the black pipe, and here where there are going to be vehicles going off, they're transitioning to a steel pipe. But what the issue here now is what do you do with the bedding? How good of a trench do you make? And what we want is we don't want any rocks touching any of the pipes whatsoever. So that is the struggle we're going here. And can you imagine digging through this? It is back-breaking work. So now we run into the tension of the deeper usually better, protects the pipe, but boy, that's a lot of work. So this is just an example of complexities that go with a pipe water network. But if done right, we're looking at a project that should last 50 years. This is Kakelo.
So we also met with the water committees in these projects, and we're really encouraged by how much female participation there is on these committees. We think, based on past experience, these committees are going to be more successful by having women on them, because women are women are the ones collecting water right now. They have a lot of incentive to keep these water systems going. So a couple of clips from water committee members that I wanted you to hear.
We have greater opportunities, whereby long time ago we were not able to be given opportunity to talk in front of people. But through Kwao and Water First team, we were trained and given that opportunity. Even in our committee, women are in more number. We are more than men in that committee. So we have given that opportunity.
I don't know if you caught the man smiling behind her, one of her male colleagues on the water committee.
Na tukajua vile tunaweza jenga choo.
So now we know how to do the toilets.
Hata tumepata ma customers.
We even found customers for the same.
Tunachimba choo.
We dig the latrines.
Na rings tunatengeneza.
We construct the rings.
Sasa tunajua wamama wanaweza.
So they know women are able.
Wanasema kwa Kijaluo mine nyalo.
In Jaluo we say mine nyalo. That is say mothers are capable.
This project has gotten, both projects have gotten a lot of interest from the county governments. So in Cocelo, we actually officially launched the project with the whole community present. Local government leaders also attended, representatives from all these different government agencies like public health and water and sanitation. And the deputy governor was there as the most senior person. And so he was part of the ribbon cutting, and he spoke at this project launch too. And I thought you'd like to hear what he has to say.
I wish to once again extend our gratitude to Water First International, the donor for this project. Your unwavering support was more than immense. Your generosity has not only quenched the thirst of our community, but also shown seeds of hope and progress as we move forward.
So the request from every government person we met with is, we hope you keep funding more projects in this region. All right, I think you're all ready to travel with us to Kenya now, aren't you? Isn't that like fun? Okay, so
Oh, there she is.
yeah, we're traveling. I don't know if you can see the very top of the screen or if it's getting covered up. It's getting covered up on mine, the text is. So we're traveling to Kenya, and we invite donors to come with us June 22nd to 30th. Please get in touch with us if you're interested in learning more about this trip or future trips. We'd love to have you come and experience this all in person with us. And one of the things that we do on these trips is actually carry water with women in the community. So that's the photo that you see on the right, is donors who came on the trip last June, who carried water from that really muddy river that I showed the video of, carried that water home to some households. And that's a meaningful experience, I think, for both our donors and for the people in the community, where we're really demonstrating our solidarity with them as they try to solve this problem. And the other event that we have coming up that we hope you'll participate in is our Carry 5 Walk for Water on May 5th, 2024. We'll be hosting a walk in Seattle at Seattle Center, but you can walk anywhere. You can walk in your neighborhood anywhere. So we encourage participants, no matter where they are, like New Zealand or the East Coast. And that is, I think that's my last slide. It is. So I'm going to stop sharing. And we'd love to have your questions if you have any.
I had one as far as the tour starts. Is it so if we're flying? I was trying to decide if the tour started more on the 24th. If you're flying separately from what I know the staff leaves on the 22nd, but is that leave your destination on the 22nd and try to meet up in Kisumu on the 24th? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Kirk would know for sure, but it does take 2 days to get there. Are you guys going to meet us there? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I think with Tammy and Dave, we're maybe going to do a like a safari or something before
okay,
your tour. Yeah. So
yeah. So the goal is for everyone to be in Kisumu on the 24th.
Okay.
So if you're doing your own traveling, if you get yourself to Kisumu the evening of the 24th, that's perfect. Or if you're in Nairobi the afternoon of the 24th, then you can hop on the same flight that we're on to Kisumu.
Okay.
And travelers are responsible for their travel to Kisumu.
Right.
But also with Dave and Tammy, I talked about the possibility of, if you guys are going to do a trip beforehand, what you might want to do is leave from Nairobi, go to Masai Mara, and then go from Masai Mara straight to Kisumu, because it's about the same distance either way.
Yeah.
It might even be a little bit closer to get to Kisumu, so you wouldn't really want to drive all the way back to Nairobi
to catch a flight.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So our transportation person, I talked to them about it, and they're looking at ways to maybe pick people up in Masai Mara and get them to Kisumu.
Oh, okay. Great.
Cool.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You brought
Kathy?
you brought up a point that I hadn't considered before that I thought was a really good point, and that was that, while it might cost more to go down deep to get clean water, the long-term expense of that versus treating water is less. And with that, what happens when you drill for water and you come up with mineral contaminants in the water? So you've got water, but there's, maybe manganese or iron or something in the water. What happens then? Is that a bad question to ask in a Zoom?
No, that's a good question. Well, on your first point, I'd say that, this concept of starting with clean water and keeping it clean, that's not limited to, low income communities. That's actually how every municipality that runs a water system tries to operate. So, Seattle is an example of a community where we work really hard to keep our watershed really clean and protected, because it reduces our long-term treatment costs, and it keeps the cost of our water down. So that's just sort of an engineering economics idea that works for us, but it's even more important in a low income community where treatment costs, the difference between a $2 water bill or $5 water bill might be that I can't afford water or something. It just it can make it cost prohibitive. So so we like to make those investments up front so that people aren't, and I'd say we're different that way as a donor. A lot of donors, we consider ourselves a donor or a grantor to these projects. I know you all consider yourselves donors, but many organizations in our position, aren't going to spend that money up front because then you have to show that your projects cost more. But we are always thinking of the long-term operation and maintenance and sustainability of these projects. So if we can make these water systems affordable, that's really the way to go. And in terms of running into, that happens. There are times that you will drill a well and you don't find water even.
Yeah.
And so it's maybe 1 out of 5 wells might turn out that way. If I were to give you a number, like that's the risk that we're taking. There's about a 20% risk that we might not do well, and we just have to find, go to a deeper layer, go to a different layer of water till we find water that's, the right water quality. But
Well,
it can happen.
I have to say that I came away convinced that your water systems are going to last a very long time. That 30 to 50 years, I thought, yeah, it is. It
Well,
is.
didn't we start hearing, and then some community members were getting excited about it, and I kept hearing 100. We're going to make it last 100 years. So, one of the things that reminds me of I really liked when the day that we were walking around in Kakamega and we were going to different households and seeing their payments to connect to the water system. Some water committee members were with me as we were going around, and we were talking about depth of the trench, and we were talking about placement of the meter on the property line. And this is their first water system. They haven't even seen a piped water network. So this is all very new to them. And what I loved about these water committee members was how eager they are to learn how to do it in a way that it will last. So when Steve was making comments, or Kirk was making comments, or I was making comments about things that they could do to, just improve on what they were in the middle of, they were so interested in it. Anyway, I was just really impressed with those water committee members who, even though it's more work for them right now, like we're saying, you need to do these trenches deeper. You need to remove the rocks, and the roots from the trees. They were like, okay, we got to do it. I mean, the attitude was totally understanding that this was in their best long-term interest.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So I'm going to do a quickie, and that's for people who are going, although you guys have already gone a number of times. But while I was there, I used a couple of existing toilets, like from before, and
you're brave.
I think the water seal, and I've done that before in my past, but the flies were really, really, really happy in those places. And, and the people, because the hole is in the ground, sometimes people aren't a great aim, So I want to say that yay for toilets.
Yay. Yay, toilets. I was going to ask a question about the water committees and the savings. And each country sort of has a different level of experience using those kinds of community groups. And I'm wondering how their experience where you're now in Kenya compares. I mean, Honduras being an exceptional, in Bangladesh, having these very deep roots in community organizing. And so how is that comparing there? Do they have experience with this, with the water committee, for example? I don't know.
Do you want to answer, Kirk?
Sure. So this is one of the reasons why we picked these two groups. They both have when we did our new partner search process, we asked to see previous water committees that they'd organized, and they really had excellent groups who were even 10 years after a project had been implemented. We're doing a great job managing some different types of systems. They didn't have piped water networks, but there were some that were just a protected spring, but the community had maintained that protected spring for 12 years or so. And then there were others that were kiosks. So it was a drilled well piped up to a tank, but then the water went to mostly kiosks and then a few household folks who were able to pay to connect, and they did a marvelous job of their management. And one of the questions we asked them was, what would improve, what would make your job easier, what would make the system more resilient and stronger economically? And they said more household connections. That the kiosk, they kind of were running the kiosk at just a loss or just barely making it, but it was the household connections that made them solvent as a committee.
Wow.
So it was good to get that feedback from them.
Yeah, because their receipts were pretty, complete. I mean, pretty sophisticated. Yeah. So that speaks to that. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, you'll get to meet these new committees. I'm impressed with the leadership in both of these projects. So it's just been a great experience seeing this all come together.
Yeah.
Marla, it's Patrick. Just a question. You'd mentioned that the government officials, at least in one of the sites, were happy to participate in the ceremony. I'm just wondering if as that relationship continues, is it a matter of government officials providing some support, or are you looking for something from the government to enable the continued growth of these areas or other communities? Or is it maybe the opposite? Is it more of trying to avoid too much government involvement so that the projects can move forward? I'm just curious kind of how that operates in these areas of Kenya.
I mean, we're still getting to know the Kenyan government system. We're working with two partners that know it much better. And our hope, I mean, as Water First, what we hope is that the government doesn't create any roadblocks, and that their support, that their enthusiasm for these projects could translate into actual like cash support. They have been supporting the projects in terms of, you have to get permission to drill a well or to cap a public spring. So they have, given permission for these projects. They haven't like held up these projects in any way. Although I guess, wasn't Cobb just saying that they're waiting on some tax exemption? So maybe the government could go a little bit faster there. But there is a concern that these projects are going to be so good that the government could want to take them over. That's not going to happen. I mean, I don't think legally that can't happen, but they may express that desire to do that. And we don't think that will be in the best interest of the community. So it won't go forward. But we hope that we can channel any enthusiasm they have like that into financial support. These governments have some money. They don't have as much money as they need to do these pipe water networks everywhere, but maybe if we co-finance some of these systems, we can get a little bit further. And create a situation like, I mean, we understand what's motivating these officials. They're trying to get reelected. So, you know, if they can be associated as co-financers in these systems, that's going to be good for them, and it's good for the communities. And we've definitely seen that happen in Honduras, where we've been collaborating with this partner for, you know, a couple decades, and all the mayors in those communities have made financial contributions to the project. That's just expected now, and that wasn't the case at the beginning. They didn't contribute anything, and they tried to make it look like they were part of the project when they really weren't. But that has evolved over time. So I'm hopeful that our partners can develop those kinds of relationships with the government officials in terms of these projects too, because we've definitely seen an example.
Yeah, that's encouraging. I mean, that's encouraging to hear that it hasn't been slowing things down, and that it could evolve into something of co-financing just to you know, further expand and build upon the initial work. So cool, thanks.
Yeah, because we totally understand that they don't have the financing to do these projects either. So is there something that we can do to support each other? We definitely be open to that conversation. We don't have to be the only funder of these projects. We're happy to share that share that stage with any other financiers.
You know, one thing that happened in Honduras that made the cost sharing possible was distribution of funding from the central government to the departments.
Right.
And that same decentralization of funding has happened recently in Kenya. So there is a possibility that there is funding in these counties' coffers that they can contribute to these projects. So hopefully we can make that happen like it did in Honduras. But it didn't happen in Honduras until
they actually had a budget. Yeah. Well, and the other, actually, now that we're talking about like government collaboration, the other interesting thing that we learned, and this was after we started working with CABDA, which is in the Kakamega County, we found out that there's a new governor of Kakamega County, and his platform, one of his platforms that he ran on and successfully ran on and won the office was water at every doorstep. So, and anyway, it's just, I think that's a great platform to run on. I would have totally voted for, you know, if I were a resident of Kakamega, I'd be like, yes, water at every doorstep. That's a priority here. So I'm glad that the governors are getting elected with those platforms. So we hope he has a few more years until the next election. So we have time to maybe convince him to participate financially.
Marla, if they co-fund projects with you, then will they take control of the projects? Would that give them?
I think that would all have to be carefully worked out. I think our Honduras partner does a great job of transparently stating everybody's financial contribution, including the communities and what their roles and responsibilities are. We sign an agreement before the project starts, before we launch it, and it's written down and it's very specific, and then we sign another agreement at the end when the project is officially handed over for the community to own and operate. So I think there's a way to manage that involvement and keep it appropriate to what the government is able to do effectively.
Cool.
Yeah, there
may be. It was great traveling with you guys.
Well, good. It was great traveling with you. And we didn't use the video. We should have used the video of you dancing with
Oh yeah, that's true.
The woman at her toilet, because we have
Yeah.
a subsequent video where
we have
Kathy is
multiple
dancing with her.
videos of Kathy dancing, and those of you who travel with us to Kenya will find that there's a lot of opportunities to dance. If you're like me and dancing in public is not super comfortable, you will get over it by the end of 4 days.
Hey, I just as an aside, I want to be in touch with you guys about the proposal I made. So later on, but just wanted to say that. Okay.
Great. Any other questions out there? Comments, thoughts?
I don't think so.
So,
All
yeah.
right. Well, great. Thank you for joining us. It's 6, so we will. We've filled the hour. Thank you for participating. Yeah.
Thank you.
For your questions.
Yeah.
And
Thanks a lot.
And to those traveling to Kenya, you're going to love it.